All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to an episode of the Full Port Podcast. This is episode 3. Today we have a special guest with us, Euwyn, a good friend of the pod. Quick intro. Euwyn is a good friend of mine. I'm just gonna glaze you up a little bit if that's okay. But when
Sounds
I
good.
first found out about Euwyn, I got introduced to him. I know he's like some sort of like savant prodigy. He graduated from Cornell computer science at the age of 18. He passed the bar and became a lawyer at the age of 21, and then which is like pretty fucking incredible if you really think about it. And then ultimately, I mean, he's had several startups that have been successful, but the one most notably, which he let me be an investor in, was Spin Scooters, which he sold to Ford Motors for $100 million after just 18 months of work. So not too bad for 18 months of work, man. So Ewan, yeah, why don't you give a little spiel about yourself?
Sure. I think you covered the big points. Originally from Singapore, went to Cornell, spent a really brief time as a corporate lawyer and realized that my heart belonged in Silicon Valley. Did YC early on in S10 when PG was still running the show, and then started Spin. Had a wonderful time scaling it and as a VC-backed company, and then under Ford, scaled to 100 cities around the U.S. and Europe, and really proud of what we did, and still to see the scooter still active in different markets like Santa Monica. Pretty cool. And recently, just in heads down in AI and trying to keep up with that and the markets and crypto and everything in between.
Yeah, no, super exciting time. So yeah, thank you for joining the pod. It's only the third one. You know, we only got like 20 viewers, but hey, look, every little
I
bit
was one of
counts.
them.
You,
I was probably maybe two.
oh yeah, maybe two of them all to count. So guys, we have a really stacked agenda today. A lot of shit has been happening, a lot of stuff going on. So I'm not even going to cover the agenda. Let's just hop into it. In general, we like to start the pod with really top of mind what's moving the markets. And I think the number one thing on everyone's mind recently this week was the big Oracle scare. So as a headline, Oracle's 5-year credit default swaps, they spiked to 128 basis points, basically the highest since 2009. TLDR, people are afraid they can't repay their debt. So, Ewan, what do you think about that?
Uh, I, what it is an interesting hedge. I think here we're at an interesting time with the amount of spending that's going into the data centers. I mean, honestly, I think we'll just have to see what comes out of this.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's scary, right? I think the market is so skittish. I think like last week we talked about how like it feels like trader sentiment is like everyone understands this is the AI narrative, the AI bubble. Every trader basically has like one foot out the door waiting for the top of the bubble. Everyone wants to kind of like run out before the bubble bursts. And you know, when you start having these big deals that were driving up the market at risk, like for example, I think they also mentioned like one of the creditors, I think it was like Blue Owl Capital. They basically backed out of a $10 billion round of financing with Oracle, but then I think Blackstone stepped in basically, which is arguably a much better, you know, creditor basically. Um, you know, it's been pretty tricky, right? And I think the scariest part is this kind of like brings us to OpenAI as a topic, which is like, you know, OpenAI, I think they're projected to do about $20 billion in revenue. I think this year or next, I think it was this year, but they've already committed to $1.4 trillion in CapEx spend. And so I think it's like valid that the market is a little bit skittish because they're kind of like, how do we get from 20 billion to profitably doing 1.4 trillion in spend. So, do you think they can? Or Nick?
I don't know what's the end point, right? Are we just headed towards AGI? Like, is it, or are we actually waiting for revenues to catch up? I don't know what. And
Yeah,
then
I think we're kind of in an interesting spot where a lot of these companies are kind of just like aping into this new technology, and it's kind of a point about like I guess what Mark Zuckerberg says too about why he's spending so much money for his data centers is that it's better to take on this risk right now than later, and to like kind of get the company and like the technology and infrastructure integrated so that when there does become a time where hey we actually found out how to like use this thing very effectively, they could take immediate advantage of it. And also in terms of competition, they remain sharp. So yeah, I think, with all this spending, like it's funny, Alex, you mentioned like another buyer came in, right, for for Oracle's financing. And that's kind of that goes to show what type of market we're in with the macro conditions. Like we're in a spot where like, yeah, there's plenty of liquidity to kind of fund all these very expensive science experiments. And that's more I see it more as, like, an exciting time. I know, like, in the past week and maybe past yeah, maybe, like, past 2, 3 weeks now, a lot of fears about AI bubble, right? And then, like, there was that headline that came out about how Oracle's data centers are gonna be delayed in development. Um, and then, like, that was, like, allegedly, like, a fake headline because then Oracle came out saying, "Hey, no, that's not the case." But that did cause a lot of fear in the markets to the point where, like, I think Oracle is effectively halved, since their recent high in September, the Oracle stock price. And, like, I know of a few traders that were trading Oracle, buying the dip, and they actually just capitulated at the bottom, or earlier this week. And, like that, and then Oracle had the announcement of like, "Oh, hey, yeah, by the way, we're gonna own like a third of TikTok US," right? And then that kind of made everyone very excited about Oracle again. So maybe like all the infrastructure they're gonna be building will have, a use case, or TikTok will be like a pretty strong use case for that. So yeah, it's a very like splashy environment with tons of money being thrown around and various headlines about whether or not like, hey, is this is this irresponsible or will this actually have like a good outcome? So yeah, confusing
I think
time.
the companies have like no choice but to do it, right? And if investors are willing to step up, someone else is going to start building. You can't kind of follow behind. I think that's the interesting thing. And speaking of like TikTok, what do we make of that actually? What I know that that just kind of came out. I'm trying to parse what that means for Oracle, what that means for TikTok, actually, as a product even.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to be honest, as like a pretty casual trader, like from my POV as a casual trader on this stuff, I'm pretty confused about it. Like it's like Oracle and like social media, right? Like maybe they're just trying to like I don't know. Yeah, Alex, if you have any thoughts, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it's a tricky question. I think, like, online sentiment I mean, I think I've kind of aged out of using TikTok. I think originally when TikTok hit the scene, when they rebranded from Musical.ly, TikTok became the epicenter of where culture originated. Like Drake, what was it, like, what's that, like, his little, like, dance thing that he did? I forgot what it was called. But a lot of kind of culture originated from TikTok, and a lot of that is powered by, China's, ByteDance's proprietary algorithm. I think that when the asset was sold to Oracle, um, I think it comes without the algorithm, and I would say, like, US incumbents like, Meta, with Instagram as well as YouTube, with Reels have certainly caught up, and the common criticism that I've seen online about TikTok now is that people keep saying, like, it no longer is the epicenter of culture, but is instead just seems like a shopping app, which kind of makes a lot of sense given that in China, social video shopping is a really, really big thing, and whereas, like, with US, I think, like, increasingly I do think that Meta will continue to take market share away from TikTok, and I'm not even sure what happens with TikTok at the end of the day. But I don't know. Like, how do you guys feel about that?
Like, is there a separate team? Is there going to be a separate U.S.
Yeah,
leadership
it's a
product team
yeah, yeah,
like running
exactly.
the ship?
It's disconnected from China completely, right? And it's like, dude, like Oracle does not have social DNA, you know,
Oracle
or
and Silver
even
Lake, right?
and
Or
so
whoever else is in.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
that's
mean,
Silver
I
Lake,
think
right?
the
So it's
cap
like,
table
yeah,
the new cap table looks something like, I believe it was like current ByteDance and ByteDance investors still own maybe more than 50% of this TikTok US entity. So, yeah,
so was it like Sig? It's like Sig, and I know Sig is like one of the biggest shareholders.
let me
Well,
find
they're the biggest shareholders of ByteDance, but
yeah,
yeah,
it's Oracle slash Silver Lake slash MGX is 45% ownership, and then like the rest is effectively yeah, ByteDance retains 20, and existing ByteDance investors retain 33.
got it, got it,
Uh,
got it.
yeah,
Right, but most of the
roughly.
TikTok's, like, product, innovation has come from China, obviously, and
Yeah,
without that,
absolutely.
I'm curious what's gonna happen. I mean, have we hit peak US TikTok? It's already kind of atrophying, right? You're
Yeah,
seeing people
yeah.
and
But
naturally over the course of aging out, the customer base is aging out anyway.
yeah. So one thing
Zuckerberg,
that
bro, he crushed it with the reels.
yeah, please,
He
please,
he
Meta,
killed
please,
off
Meta.
Snapchat, and, now he's probably gonna kill off TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to kinda go off I know we went off on a tangent of Oracle here and TikTok, but I kinda wanna kinda bring it back to the OpenAI discussion. I think previously what you guys previously mentioned was like, "Hey, look, OpenAI has no choice but to kind of pursue the hyperscaler strategy." They often said that we don't have enough compute. Greg Brockman has come out and said that like, "Hey, look, we've taken a lot of our compute from research and, moved it over to deployment, and we don't think we're ever gonna catch up," which is a very confusing video. But I kinda wanna dive not to be a bear, but I wanna kind of double click into the means in which this funding comes from, right? So last week, Nick, I posed a question that, is OpenAI going to be the next Netscape? And the reason why I said that is, Sam Altman, obviously Greg Brockman, incredible, really, really smart team, would never bet against them. But it's really about like, where does your next incremental dollar come from? In the sense of like, if you cannot produce profit, then how will you continue to fund this? Sam Altman is probably one of the best fundraisers of the last century, basically, alongside Elon. But it's like, at what point does the money stop, right? So to kind of give you guys some basic numbers, I talked about this last week, but it's like, one, where does the money come from? And two, where does distribution come from? So on the money side, Google obviously came out with Gemini 3. They produced $74 billion in free cash flow, right? That's after a CapEx spend. Meta, for example, has generated $45 billion in free cash flow. And this is after $70 billion in CapEx spend. So with Sam Altman basically coming out, the markets have kind of recovered a little bit because Sam Altman basically said, hey, look, OpenAI is raising a new round, $100 billion at a $750 billion valuation. We're bringing in sovereign funds now. He's basically trying to make himself, he's attaching him to everyone. He wants to become, too big to fail, right? But what happens? Like, can they keep doing this? What happens if Google runs at a negative 30% margin with Gemini? What happens if Meta runs at a negative margin? They're funding it through profits, and they're willing to do it, as you said. Everyone's racing for it. So what do you guys think about OpenAI then? Like, do you still feel the same way? Do they become just a research lab? What if they get liquidated? Right? They can't. What if they get not to use a crypto? Yeah. What if they get liquidated and people have to buy their assets because they can't afford to fund their things anymore? Does Microsoft just buy them? Like, what happens?
Right. I mean, I guess you were talking about Netscape. Nick, you didn't know what Netscape was, I guess.
He didn't. Yeah.
I did not.
As someone born in the who's been on the internet since the late 1900s, as some of the kids say these days, I do remember Netscape quite well as my first browser. I think it's a lot about. I think the scary part for OpenAI here is that most of the revenue, I think, comes from the consumer ChatGPT app right now. And as much as they try to push in like sticky features, I personally, having messed around with like Google.ai and even Meta.ai this week, didn't really miss ChatGPT that much.
Same.
As much of the memory stuff could be good, really it didn't detract from my experience at all, and I was happy to switch. And if Google can subsidize their AI product for free, there's no reason why I would continue paying my $20 a month or whatever, and most people would just kind of turn off, and that's pretty scary for OpenAI if they're people just churn. And I think that's happening with a lot of AI companies in general. Like any image, a lot of people sign up for the cool app of the day and then they just like churn.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've definitely had my fair share of that where I just try out I tried out like a slide deck generator AI, right? And then I turned within a day, like it's gone.
It's so funny. It's like that's all those. Sorry to just interject there. It's like that's why all those like ChatGPT wrapper companies raise up these massive valuations because they get a lot of like one month interest, call it ARR, and they churn immediately.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, I don't have my OpenAI subscription anymore.
Same.
I just have Claude for like code, and then like Gemini. I don't think I pay for Gemini right now. Gemini has just been like so far I haven't been paywalled yet. It's been pretty good there. Yeah, I mean, to your point about Microsoft already owning a ton of OpenAI, I guess it's possible that like Microsoft just ends up kind of like in that scenario, Microsoft just ends up kind of like backing OpenAI's further research, and Microsoft is obviously a huge money printer, of course, along with other investors, but they're a majority owner, and yeah, I guess like I don't know if the internet talks about this much, but like these days anymore, but like back in the day, OpenAI was a nonprofit, right? So
right.
so hey, they tried making a profit, and I think they tried making a profit under being a nonprofit.
They're still a nonprofit, technically.
Exactly, right? So like, hey, like
I think Elon has a lot to say about that.
On paper, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Actually, I was thinking about, I know, Alice, you brought up the browser analogy, but what about search? I mean, to think about what happened in search with Google maintaining its dominance and what led to Google being able to maintain its dominance for like decades.
Right.
It was just technically in the same way it's interesting, like with enough, could a competitor with sufficient capital at the time have built a Google 2? Probably. Like, I don't know. And this is what happened in this era, right? This is what's happening in this era. While it was technically and financially pretty like difficult to build a large language model like ChatGPT. Now we have like three or four other players who have come in this space, so that technical edge is gone. That
Yeah,
technical barrier to
that's
entry.
Yeah, it's a really good question because I think it's like, talking about the distribution advantage because you have a capital advantage, right? Sam Altman, when he came out, it was like, oh man, this guy has a capital advantage because he's so good at raising capital and he's proven that to be true. But now when you get like these hyperscalers, the Mag 7 that can actually afford to fund it out of profits, that no longer is the case. But the one thing that he also has to deal with is a distribution advantage, right? So just kind of give you guys some stats again. Meta often reports in their earnings that their family of apps they have over 4 billion monthly active users. On Google, they have 7 products with over 1 billion users, including like things like YouTube, right? And so when you kind of draw the analogy with Netscape, what really happened was like, you had Netscape, which is this, this pioneer, and you had Google that came along literally with Internet Explorer. And as you know, with not Google, Microsoft came out with Internet Explorer, and Microsoft just their famous strategy is just bundling, right? Like that's what they did with Slack, and they literally were just like, "Hey, we have the OS. You have to use our browser or get fucked," right? And Netscape, obviously, Nick didn't even hear about it, right? So it kind of got erased. But I mean, but you brought up a really good point, which I didn't really think about, which is like, if you guys have read Steve Jobs' book, he tried to build a browser, right? He tried to build his own search engine. It just didn't work, right? They probably they didn't have as much money as Mag 7 do today, right? But like, how did Google carve out a niche for itself? I
No
know they
one
had a
just went after
strategic
them.
plan.
No one went
Yeah.
after them. Everyone's just like, we give up. Like, we don't know how to do
Yeah.
this. I mean, PageRank was
Yeah.
like published paper, right? You could have implemented it. You could have,
Yeah.
raised enough capital. I guess there wasn't nobody just kind of
Who
thought to
was
do
it?
it.
Like AOL or what was who was even there? Was it AOL or
I
was
mean,
it
back in the day, it was Alta Vista. That was
AltaVista? Right,
was
right.
Yahoo, then Alta Vista, then Google came along. Alta Vista. I'm glad that I'm giving you guys a history lesson. By the way, I guess this is my
No, 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 no.
this is
I'm in
mine.
between. I'm in between you and Nick, so I grew up with some of
Yeah.
this also. I saw it on. Dude, do you remember a browser called iwan.com? Do you know this?
No,
Have
what?
you ever heard about this? No, it
Is this
was
the
when
one that
I was a
gives you
little
like free
kid.
rewards or something?
Yeah, every time you search, that's kind of why I got mad at Perplexity once for their
Uh-huh.
the thing. It was like every time you search a query, we might give you money, and I was like, oh my god, I got PTSD when I was a kid. I saw this on TV. And when I was a kid, I used to like search stuff. You get like $5. It was just a nightmare. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah, after Google came along, no one really challenged. I mean, Bing came along, but it wasn't very
Bing, yeah,
compelling. Um, I'm
Yeah,
trying to think about why. Yeah, it wasn't quite as good.
yeah. Real quick, I guess just for like the pod, I pulled up Alta Vista. So Alta Vista was a web search engine in 1995. It became one of the most early search engines, but lost ground to Google and purchased by Yahoo in 2003. And then the service was eventually shut down by Yahoo in 2013. And then that domain was redirected to Yahoo Search.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alta Vista was like full text search without PageRank, so you can imagine like how stupid it was.
Wow,
It was basically like keyword stuffing. So whatever
that's
you search for,
crazy.
whatever web page had the most keywords, you'd get
was
that.
it all the
Good old days
footer?
of
Yeah,
internet.
yeah,
Yeah, good
Wow.
old.
yeah. GeoCities,
Uh,
that era.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
so people can
go
switch.
ahead. Yeah.
So with these chat, I think part of ChatGPT's early lead, OpenAI's early lead, was that it was product innovation. They discovered this product first. I don't think anybody realized that this chat form factor was going to be this dominant as a way to replace search. The sort of the chat bar and then the chat history and context, this mode of using AI models. But now the kind of cat's out of the bag. Everyone's doing literally the exact same thing now. I think I love that Google AI and Meta AI is just shamelessly. That's just like ChatGPT. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Um, Yeah, so kind of shifting that. So obviously, I think there's a capital risk, right? It's like at some point, if OpenAI can't figure out their finances and switch from more, funding, like is he going to dump on retail with the IPO? Maybe, who knows,
Mhm.
right? Where is he going to get his next incremental dollar? Like we're already talking about sovereign funds and stuff like that, right? So that's a core risk. The second core risk is basically like you're already seeing kind of like market share kind of go down, right? At one point they're 90%. Google's quickly gaining market share. I think now they're down to 70%. So, obviously still have an enormous amount of distribution. So that's potentially a risk area. And the third thing I kind of wanted to talk about was, moving on to Microsoft, right? Their frenemy pivot, if you will, where previously they're the primary backer, they renegotiated some deals, yada, yada, yada. But, I don't know if you guys remember, a few months back, Sam Altman, when he raised that large round, he was like, "Oh, by the way, you cannot invest in these other hyperscalers." Do you guys remember that?
No.
He basically came out with a statement. He's like, he's trying to box out capital from like their competitors. You know, oh yeah, if you invest in us, you can't invest in Anthropic, you can't invest in Grok, whatever, whatever. And now you see Microsoft, their best backer, invest in. I think they invested in Anthropic, right? Yeah. And then something else, if you know, when Satya talks, you know, on the services that Azure kind of basically sells, I think a minority of it is actually, you know, OpenAI back. They actually use a lot of Mistral. They actually use a lot of their in-house models as well. So like, what do you think is going through Satya's head, strategy-wise? Do you think he likes Sam? Do you think he dislikes Sam? What do you think is going on? He's obviously a very good statesman. So what's your read on this?
Well, I just have a quick note. I mean, they did a pod together with Brad Gerstner. So
Yeah, yeah.
I there was a pretty interesting, I guess, thing that went around on tech Twitter. They were saying how like I think Brad Gerstner said something that kind of like provoked Sam to be like, you know what? If you want to like sell your OpenAI shares, I have
Right.
plenty of buyers for you. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it does get a bit. The competition does kind of like
That
bubble
was the
up.
top, bro. That was the top. I think the market started to slide when he said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Kind of moving on to Meta. You know, I'm a big bag holder. I'm actually full ported into Meta right now, and some Robinhood, so maybe not full port. Three announcements coming up. So first, Martin Shkreli, he posted this analysis of basically of the top AI websites, who's growing the fastest. He subtly noted, you know, Meta AI actually just launched last month, and they're growing 110%. You know, they actually didn't really do a big announcement around this, but if you go to Meta AI, it's obviously just like a ChatGPT, Gemini kind of competitor. That's one. And then two, the two other announcements obviously is one, they announced that they're going to have their own closed source model, kind of moving away from open source, now moving to a closed source model called Avocado. And the third thing is they're coming out with their Nano Banana Pro Sora competitor called Mango, right? So image model, video model, and language model. What do you guys think? You think my bags are going to be saved? You think I'm fucked? Like, what do you think about the
What was
data
your
they have?
thesis? What was your thesis for hoarding into
Yeah,
Meta?
yeah. We we talked about this in the last pod. Nick and I have been wanting to get into Meta for quite some time. You know, one, obviously, I trust Mark Zuckerberg as a leader, and you know, I think they have a very, very strong lock and stronghold. And they were the kind of the only kind of Mag Seven that hasn't really been able to break out with any AI initiatives. On a narrative basis, you know, they kind of acquired Alexander Wang. We know him through YC, obviously, and they were recruiting a lot of smart people. So what I was
We got
thinking,
tacos
looking
with Alex,
forward,
remember?
we did get tacos with Alex, yeah. We were looking forward because you know obviously in the public markets, especially these days, narrative does help drive price as well. And there's so many upcoming catalysts. It's like, yo, you guys are so behind in the AI race right now. You just acquired all these incredible people. All it's gonna take with your stock price being depressed after the last earnings is for you to be like, hey, by the way, we know Llama was ass, but we just came out with our model and it's hella good. Look at all like these people that we got, right? So it was kind of like playing into kind of that. I think I messed up my time frame a little bit. I need a longer time horizon, but I'm relatively bullish, right? Because like if you think about how quickly Google turned it around, like me and Nick played the Google trade as well. You know, it dropped down to 150 after it was just, you know, all the SJW stuff, right? Like, oh, George Washington is black, right? And then literally you have it less than 6 months later, they're killing it across the board, right? The best image models, the best chatbot, right? And so with Facebook, it's kind of similar where you're kind of like, dude, how can they not have one of the best image models on Instagram, right? On Reels, right? Yeah. So you know, and they have so much distribution as well. So it's like you would kind of hope if you're betting on this team that they're definitely going to be able to produce a real contender, and they have an enormous amount of distribution, right? So that was kind of the core thesis, basically.
Yeah, and where are they
Yeah.
pushing out? You said Meta.ai. I hadn't seen it anywhere else. Like, how are they
Yeah.
getting their eyeballs on that in the first place? I'm curious. Is it just popping up in Instagram?
I have like a yeah. So Meta launched an app called Vibes in September, and I think Meta.ai is like a reskin of that essentially. And so Vibes was just like an app where it's basically OpenAI's Sora competitor,
Mhm.
where you essentially pull up, you just say, hey, generate me any type of like photo or video, or you upload a clip, and then like automatic kind of generates a skin of you doing some type of other scene. So Vibes was like working and out there since like September, and I did like play around with it a bit, and I thought it was pretty impressive. Um, I mean, like, it's AI slop, but they're working on it. And then, yeah, I think like this eventually kind of converted into, yeah, what's now Meta.ai. So I guess like they first kind of sandboxed it with, on the mobile version. And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah, and
yeah, we have this.
I think that's so confusing to me, right? It's like, so I mean, we talked about this last week also. I mean, I know Alex Swing and Mark, I think they're going around. I think one of the key selling points they're telling a lot of these top AI researchers is that you will have more amount of compute per employee, right? So, basically saying you can do a lot more, here at Meta than any other place that's more resource constrained or compute constrained. And we talked about this in the last pod, where basically we were talking about like we haven't yet seen a true chat model or language model or even an image model built on the Blackwell chips yet, right? Like, because like everyone's rushing to build these new data centers that are built on Blackwell that are actually coherent, so you can train a coherent model on them. And apparently, it's like significantly better than Hopper, like leaps and bounds ahead, right? And if Gemini 3 was trained on TPUs and it got so far, what are these Blackwell models are gonna, what are they gonna look like? And the only reason why I bring this up is because like when when Vibes came out, it was just so unremarkable. No, I mean, they got a lot of hate for it because of like, oh, this is AI slop. I hate this shit, right? But it's like, well, like, we work with a lot of like AI creators, and it's like when they're using Grok image model, right? And the Grok doesn't have as much data as Facebook, right? They're using they're using Chinese models like 1, 2.6,
Yeah.
right? They're using like no one's using.
It was slop. It wasn't even good slop.
It
It was
wasn't
just
even good slop. It was just like it felt like last year's slop or 2 years ago's slop, right? So I think it's like really confusing. If I'm not mistaken, that's kind of why it's so confusing because it's like, Elon, because we're talking now. It's a hardware constraint, right? It's an atoms constraint where it's like Elon's gonna be the first one to stand one up because he's just the best at this shit, right? But Facebook, I think it's like there's like rumors where it's like, oh, like honestly, Jensen's probably going to Meta and being like, bros, I got the secret of how Elon is building these data centers because I need you guys to catch the fuck up so you can buy more chips from me, right? So like, I'm sure he's like, yo, come on, I need you to succeed too because I need more revenue, please, right? So it's like, I don't know, like I really, 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 really hope it's good. And I don't. It's just scary to me because I'm surprised they let Vibes release given how meh it was. But I guess Sora came slightly after, right? They came like a
yeah.
day after. Like they kind of preempted each other, like one upping each other. And then Google just like took a big dump on everyone, right? So
With that, bro. Yeah.
Alex,
yeah,
back to your
so
your meta trade. I believe in your hypothesis that actually it like there's a hole in like Meta's product offering right now with these AI,
yeah,
and if they can fill that hole, which is pretty straightforward to be honest, like, and they're doing that
yeah,
with Meta AI, so they are going to fill that hole. But can they innovate beyond that? I don't know. Like, can they actually gain? The market will probably reward them, as you're thinking, for standing up a couple products like a good
yeah.
ChatGPT competitor. No one's going to really switch to. I don't see people like. I haven't thought of a compelling reason why consumers would necessarily flock to it. But I think
Yeah.
the markets would reward. There are interesting possibilities, obviously, with that much social data they have on Instagram. Like, obviously, people are going to Grok because it's supposedly timely on new. I don't know. Have you actually used Grok much? Like, is it actually delivering better news related results? That's what
I
Elon claims, right?
I use Grok for finance because I need tweets, access to tweets. That's increased since Gemini 3 came out. I just don't use it at all, Grok, really, right?
Yeah.
I'm 100% full stack like Google right now.
Yeah,
Oh, you're
I
back. Okay.
almost never use Grok. I mean, like, I did maybe a little bit before Gemini really got good, and that was specifically for parsing out or querying things related to crypto and finance, because like that's just where that
That's where all the
crowd is.
info is, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say for finance, I use Gemini for like giving me like an analysis on or giving me a summary of like this company's earnings or like past 4-year performance, etc. Yeah, that's all in Gemini. So yeah, I haven't used Grok.
Yeah. Like if you guys, I'm sure you've done deep research or like heavy, like Grok heavy versus like deep research on Gemini. It's like when Gemini 3 came out and I was like looking at its like chain of reasoning basically. And what it was researching, it was like insane. It was like, oh, step one, watching 9,000 YouTube videos. And I was like, oh my God. Right. And it was like, oh, this is what it said, this is what it said. And it found out things about like things I couldn't even find. And then on Grok, it's kind of like so it's like that's why Google has an advantage, right? It's like able to proprietarily access YouTube, all these big assets that they own. Whereas like on Grok, it's like oh, there's this weird like spaceship looking like loading. It's kind of cool, but then it's like, oh, like searching tweets and it's kind of slow and like the information. I don't know if it's that good. It's not as fast. So I kind of was just like, bruh, like I'm just gonna use Gemini. That's kind of how I
Mhm.
felt, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
why, like in the last pod, I was telling Nick, I'm like, I'm actually really, really excited for Blackwell because like we haven't seen a model. It's like if people are telling me it's like 10x better than Hopper, which is what everything else was trained on, like how crazy is the next one going to be? And how much faster
Yeah.
is it gonna be? It's a really, really exciting time.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
got me thinking about like Meta's kind of AI strategy, right? It doesn't seem like it's going to be their core competencies to stand up like a better ChatGPT, like a better
No.
search or information retrieval product. That's not never been their thing, right? It's been social.
Yeah.
If anything, like their AI stuff probably seems more like character AI, the kind of like pseudo social, but they're kind of steering away from that. I think they had a pretty half-hearted effort on that front.
Yeah.
But
And
Yeah,
it,
and go ahead, Nick.
Mark Zuckerberg did say that, like, yeah, one of their kind of defining features for their AI is gonna be that, "Hey, we see the competitive landscape to be all B2B, like, kind of focused on productivity, and we want our AI to be more personal, and more personalized and, like, kinda related to, like, yeah, like, the personal life type of things and try
And
and
that makes
enriching
sense.
that."
That makes a lot of
Yeah, because they
sense,
have
right?
all that data to, like, know about your
Yeah.
interests and, like, your relationships, so,
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
they'll absolutely kill it there. I think, like, just to give some context, Ewan, I think, like, the really hard spot that Facebook has always been in because they're a consumer, and that's a shitty part about being in consumer, is that it's just it's just overregulated, right? It's like, oh, you license Kendall Jenner's face, but you have to call her Sarah, right? You need to spam the, hey, this is an AI fiction bot, by the way. It's not actually real, so don't be stupid, right? So I think it's like they're just so neutered. And like because like I'm sure like Mark Zuckerberg has PTSD from, all the political stuff, like being summoned by, Congress and all that stuff and having to testify. It's just such a headache for him that like, especially when you're navigating a consumer and trying to make a best friend bot, it's just like really hard for him to compete because he knows that if he oversteps his boundary, he's just gonna get constant fire for it, right? So, I don't. Maybe it's an opportunity, for someone to
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
go do
I
that.
guess
Yeah,
to kind of like summarize, our earlier point about doing this meta trade, and you and you were asking about our hypothesis. I mean, I think at the core of it, most of it did just come down to like the massive discount that Meta was trading at.
yeah.
After their earnings release in October, it was like a minus 20% since like their recent highs. So I think it was like 780 to 580, like that type of move happened in the span of like 2 months. Yeah, that type of, like, discount seemed very compelling regardless of, like, the current state of their AI.
It's the
Just
cheapest
yeah,
Mag 7.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's the cheapest Mag 7. Its PE
yeah,
is trading below SPY, right? I think it's like 18 or something, right? So it's like it's priced incredibly well, and the market's just punishing it for being too aggressive on spend. But
yeah,
we need to see those announcements, and the hard part is, like, I know they don't give a shit about the stock price and, like, pumping their bags, right? Like, they're very long-term minded, or maybe they do, I don't know. But, like, I think it's just like, oh, yeah, I guess, like, the last thing I was gonna say is, like, it's just they have to get it right. They cannot come out with another Vibes. They cannot, right? That's gonna be so bad, you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
And the last thing I'll say about this, like, yeah, part of the hypothesis is also, like, because we saw so much fun about the spending, part of the hypothesis was like, "Hey, look, like, it's fine," right? And, like, they'll probably cut back on it if they need to, and, like, they make a ton of money, and their main cash cow is growing 20% year over year anyway, so it's like,
right.
that was also another part of the hypothesis, just like, "Yo, like, this seems very disparate," like, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Shout
And
out
then
Alex
last
Wang.
point
Pump the bags. Go
about
ahead, yeah.
Meta, video
Yeah, go
video
ahead.
models. They've kind of surprisingly, in my view, kind of made less impact than I would have expected. I think we were all super excited to see video generation at the level of quality and Sora, but it's kind of come and gone. I don't really see. It comes up now and again on like Instagram, but I don't think it's drastically changed how Instagram or TikTok appears, and I don't think there's much retention on the actual Sora product, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
Yeah,
No
like
way.
it's worth checking
Oh, you
out.
mean
So
Vibes. You mean Vibes for Meta, you mean? Or do you mean OpenAI Sora?
even the OpenAI Sora,
Oh,
like
oh, 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 oh. Yeah, I heard it's pretty
definitely not
weak.
vibes. Yeah, but also definitely not
Oh,
Sora.
well,
It's kind of
so sorry.
interesting.
No, just to riff off of that, I think, like, I actually tweeted about this. It's like, one, just to answer your question directly, I think that Sora is great as a video model, for image generation platforms. So Higgs Field, for example, they just aggregate basically all the image and video models together, growing like a weed, like super fast. You just like toggle to Sora and people use it. So absolutely, that's kind of why when Sam said, "Oh yeah, we're getting big in the enterprise," absolutely, I think like people use Sora, right, for everything, safe for work content, right? So ads and stuff like that. And what was I gonna say? And why it has poor retention is because I tweeted about like do you remember like through YC there was like this exciting new company that was like, oh, we're gonna build AI Instagram. It was like Can of Soup or something like that,
Mhm,
right? They got
mhm.
in some trouble or whatever, but we won't dive into that. And I was like, man, like that's actually kind of interesting, right? Like, why can't there be one? Every new network starts with a really compelling tool. But then I realized I was like, oh, like Instagram doesn't actually have an innovator's dilemma because it was never about authenticity, anyways, right? It was literally just about like clicks making your life look as best it is. It's all fake anyways. No one believes anything anyways. So like that content could just live on Instagram. There is no innovator's dilemma. You're not compromising the network, you know? If people wanted authenticity, they've already all moved to chat apps like Telegram, Messenger, or whatever. But
Yeah.
then Instagram is literally just like a dopamine magazine, if that makes sense, right? So that's kind of why, like, I think Sora as a standalone app was just you know, never gonna dent Instagram, basically. Yeah. And by the way, sorry, not to go on another tangent, but now we're seeing all these like not a financial trouble brewing, but it's like, Sam, I remember Sam wants to start a SpaceX competitor. Sam wants to do social media. And then I think after Gemini 3 came out, he was like, all right, guys, code red. I'm gonna stop fucking around. I'm just kidding. I don't know how to build rockets and stuff like that. I think like after all this stuff comes out, do you think like Elon's kind of over it? Like, do you think he's just like, I don't care about you. I only care about Google now. Like, do you think he even considers OpenAI an enemy? Probably still, right?
Probably. I think it's emotional for him, somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, he probably wants to see them go to 0. But yeah. Okay, cool. Let's see. Moving on. Nick, you wanna talk to us about Lululemon?
Oh, I mean,
Lululemon?
yeah, I just have like a quick blurb about it. So essentially, in October 2025, so not too long ago, the founder and old CEO, Chip Wilson, wrote an article titled "Lululemon in a Nosedive." And he basically said, like, yeah, currently we're in a spot where this current administration needs to go. They kind of just like sent like, yeah, they did a bad job managing brand image and like kind of navigating like the weird political, I guess, environment that, we had in the past 5 years. That's also kind of one of the main reasons why Chip was kind of kicked out. Um, but now we're kind of and then essentially, yeah, so Lululemon stock, huge downturn it's been on. Also, the quality of their items generally has been kind of going down. As you guys mentioned earlier, I think you guys are wearing different athleisure brands now. I think you mentioned a different one.
Vori, big
Vori.
fan.
Yeah, yeah, that one was
Great
definitely
stuff.
meant.
Very
Yeah,
comfortable.
yeah, there it is. Yeah, so the competitive landscape is getting a lot stronger, and so yeah, I feel like we commonly see, or rather, it's really worth paying attention to when kind of like old founders publicly say to the current company and current leaders, like, "Hey, you're fucking up," and it's very worth kind of like paying attention to because shortly after he wrote this letter about, I guess 2 months later when Lululemon had their earnings earlier this week, the current CEO is stepping down now. So that kind of like creates a movement on like correcting this board. And so yeah, I think in terms of like markets and finding edge, I think when you kind of like see this type of like narrative and movement happening, it's worth paying attention to. There's two other really good examples that come to mind for when old founders or activist investors reach out to the current leadership. The most recent one is Open Door. We had that huge kind of like meme move in the summer, and that kind of got started with the old founders writing public letters to the current Open Door leadership. And I believe Eric Wu. There was four
Mhm.
original co-founders of Open Door. Eric Wu wrote like a letter on Twitter. It was like an open love letter to Open Door. It was on Twitter. It was posted in July, and yeah, he was saying essentially all the things that like kind of went wrong and what needs to be done to kind of like continue and grow as a business. Um, and I think Keith Boy also became very, very vocal. He was also one of the original co-founders of Open Door. He became very vocal throughout the summer, and two of the other co-founders as well. And yeah, about a month or two later, Carrie Wheeler, the original CEO, or rather the new CEO, she was like basically stepped out. And they put in new CEO who seems like a killer, Kaz. He was the CEO of Shopify, and stock turnaround. Like Kaz really fixed up the financial backing of the company, and there seems to be now Open Door is kind of like a new venture bet of like, hey, let's try to go after this housing market in this new macroeconomic climate. So yeah, I mean, and the other example is GameStop. I mean, GameStop was just like Ryan Cohen stepping in and be like, hey, your leadership is like pretty bad, and I'm gonna buy up most of your company and fix it up essentially. Um, and we all know what happened with GME. I'm not saying Lululemon is going to be like GME or Open Door, but it's interesting. Like when you have these like big leadership changes, it sparks a renewed interest and potentially a
Right.
brighter future for the company.
Yeah. The team
Didn't
is
did the
definitely
meme
most
stuff happen for
important.
Open
Yeah.
Door before Eric? I forgot what the order of events was. Well, it logically kind of makes sense that Eric's re-involvement would be the catalyst. I thought it was actually the other way around, where like the meme markets just picked up on Open Door just for the lols, and then everyone just
That
started
did
getting
happen.
yeah,
That did
everyone
happen, and then it died. And then
right.
that's when and that after that meme rant died, like, that's when they all kinda stepped in and really, like, went loud on Twitter, and that caused, like, another big like, a
Mm.
far larger meme run. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
You do you
I don't
trade this
see it. I
stuff?
don't see. Not well soon. I mean,
Or do you trade
so,
memes, or like, do you trade narrative, or are you primarily just like long? Like, what's your average hold time? I'm just curious.
haven't been super active. I mean, part of this, the reason of
Okay,
like
okay.
getting of chatting with the guys is to start paying more attention to this, and this
Got
is
it, got it,
fun.
got it.
But
Yeah.
talk about the meme potential for Lulu. I think
Please, yeah.
part of the weakness I think it's just been on brand. It's something that I actually experienced myself. Like it's actually not a cool brand for a guy it misses out on that market. Unlike Vori, which is uh, can cater to men and women in the athleisure kind of market. And it being, it was the first kind of yoga-ish brand. Lululemon was very cool then, but it's kind of stale now. Like, and as with all fashion brands, it'd be cyclical. Like, wait another 5-10 years before it like gets cool again.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, they've kind of been sieged from a lot of different angles. Lululemon, I think one fun fact that someone on our team taught me, he said that the founder called it Lululemon because it was really hard for Asian people to say Lululemon because they wouldn't say Lululemon, right? So I thought that was a really 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 fun thing.
Vancouver
Don't mind
company,
the
I think.
racism. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
it's a Vancouver company. Don't mind the racism. It's chill. I don't care. Um, it's just a fun-hearted one. I think uh, you're right, right? It's like they're getting sieged from so many different places. I first started wearing Lululemon and probably in mid the 2010s, and the reason why I did it was I found out,
Why were you
I was
wearing
going to
Lululemon?
yeah, because I was going to CrossFit a lot, and a lot of the
Okay.
guys were
Okay.
just were wearing them as like the pants or whatever.
Hmm.
And at that time, a lot of people were like, "Bro, like, why are you wearing that? Like, this is for chicks that want to like wear the yoga pants and stuff." And I was like, you know what? I do what I want. I do what I want. And then then like tech bro, then they came out with like the whole like a athleisure, or it's like the pants that look like they feel like sweats, but they're actually like
The
or
A
they're sorry, they look like slacks, but they feel like sweats is what it
the
is, right?
ABC, the anti-ball
Yeah,
crushing.
yeah, exactly. And that kind of like permeated through tech and did really, really well, but it definitely lacks the cool factor. I mean, you and I know you're in LA now. It's like Vori is big. Like I've completely transitioned to wearing on cloud, right? And like Nike
Hmm.
obviously suffers from this problem also. Like I'll exclusively wear on cloud because I think the brand is cooler than, let's say, Lululemon. And, the only saving grace of like Lululemon, what I thought was really interesting was I started buying, because I started playing tennis again. Very cyclical. Pickleball got big, and I wanted to play tennis because it's cooler than pickleball. And then it was like, oh, I wanted a new apparel. What do I buy? Do I buy Lululemon? But then I was like, Wilson is kind of cool. And I remember going into Wilson, and I was like, like they're getting revitalized. The brand seems kind of cool. It's a turnaround. And then I went to go check out at the Wilson in Valley Fair in the Bay Area. And when I checked out at Wilson, it said $100 charge, Lululemon. And I was like, oh my God, they white labeled this. That's kind of a cool idea. The licensing IP, doing a rev share, breaking into a new market. And it felt kind of sexy, right?
Hmm.
So I thought that was
Wilson,
pretty
the
cool.
tennis
But
brand. You mean
the tennis
the
brand.
tennis brand?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the problem is they're actually not that cool either, right? It's like, like On Cloud is sponsoring a lot of the big players.
That
Yannick
should be their
Sinner is
male
like
brand, to
sponsored
be
by
honest.
Nike.
The founder is Chip Wilson. They should just like put
Yeah,
out
yeah,
like yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Wilson would
so
be a cool brand.
it would be a cool brand, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think like, not to kind of, get you into this, just wanted to dive into like the brand side of things and the competition. I think that's also very, very real. But a lot of people are suffering from this, like Nike, right? Like they got left behind when everyone transitioned to more like athletic wear, right? And so we're still, I think Bill Ackman lost a few $100 million on that bet, right? Or something like that. Nick, do you remember?
Uh, yeah, yeah. I think he took a pretty big position on Nike at some
Yeah,
point.
he liquidated all his well, he took a massive loss on his equity position and he still has some like calls, I think, like leaps.
I see. Yeah, yeah,
Nike
yeah.
down 10% today.
10% today?
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
what's up
yeah,
with it?
they had earnings yesterday or yesterday at close, yeah.
Boys, is it
So
time for us to do a little mean reversion play?
I don't
consumer
like this
discretionary
this
consumer
chart shape.
discretionary is risky, man.
Yeah. Wait, what? Okay, okay, okay. Whatever. Cool. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about crypto. Nick, you're in crypto. I'm in crypto. You and
I'm
you
sort of in
were
crypto.
you were very big in crypto. You
Still
were in
is.
crypto involved. Yeah, you still are. We're
Yeah,
always tangentially 1 foot in crypto. We're
Yeah,
1 foot in
always.
everything.
Yeah.
What do you think,
I
Nick? Tell us. You're actively in the trenches. What's going on?
What is
well,
happening?
okay.
Yes.
Well, I guess, like, yeah, I mean, trenches are pretty dead at the moment. Yesterday you had a pretty big more liquidations. And like, yeah, in general, we're in a weird spot where like you have a lot of people kind of like talking about farming, airdrop farming points for ton of different perp dexes, right? Like there's lighter, there's variational, there's like, and they're also kind of like speculating about farming airdrop points for prediction market exchanges as well. So you have like Limitless, you have Binance's, which I think is called like Opinion or something like that. There's so many now. It's tough to even remember these names,
Is it
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so it's in a really strange spot. In general, like farming perp dex is in a really bad kind of like market like crypto is in right now is a horrible idea. Like you're just gonna punt it all. Like and so like it's really tricky to kind of
That makes
like
sense. That makes sense.
consider getting involved with this airdrop farming activity. Um I will say though, like I guess there is like I guess some interesting like longer term innovation going on that we see. So I guess we'll talk about Robinhood real quick. We can talk more about it later as well. Because again,
Whoa,
Alex,
whoa,
you
whoa, whoa. Let me talk about
yeah,
Robinhood.
you went to the event, but
Let
like,
me talk
Yeah.
about Robinhood.
but
No, go ahead.
but
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
yeah, but like the tokenization of of other assets happening on chain is kind of what we see a lot of right now. Like for example, yesterday there was like some activity on crypto Twitter where they said Robinhood just tokenized 500 different assets on Arbitrum, and actually Vlad kind of retweeted that as well, saying, "Hey, yeah, we're cooking," and they kind of just like tokenized, yeah, various. They basically laid the technical infrastructure on Arbitrum to like be able to mint more tokens to represent shares of like the various assets they tokenized. Um, and this particular product, Robinhood tokenized stocks, is targeted for their European audience. If you go to like robinhood.com/EU/ like tokenization, I forgot the exact URL, but that's where they talk about like, hey, yeah, you're buying financial derivatives that represent the stock, but it's not necessarily the stock. So that's like so I guess we're kind of in that, we might be in that like bear market building phase where you're kind of seeing these key pieces being built out that eventually will catch wind when we have a random excitement from retail to kind of jump in.
Yeah.
But
Can I chime in here? Oh,
yeah,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah, you
Uh,
and I kind of want to give you my thoughts and context on the crypto markets now as well. Like, obviously, a lot of retail, as you know, got like wiped out through, because of perps, right? And the trenches, effectively, like crypto Twitter has just been dead. And the question that I constantly talk about with Nick is the institutionalization of crypto. All the liquidity now is basically coming from institutions, regulatory frameworks with David Sachs in charge. It's like the big companies are now coming directly for crypto, right? It's not kind of like a just bottoms up approach. And because there is more regulatory framework, I think like a lot of these token launches, like you have Monad, right? Like I'm an angel investor. Currently it's only down only. It's kind of like when there's just like, and I'm sure you understand this. There was this big, and it still is a big problem in crypto where you would issue a token and no one knows what it does. It's a governance token. Oh, it needs
Mhm.
to be decentralized and distributed because it secures the network. Yada 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 yada. Right? But then it's like what you're starting to see now is like, oh, from the public market side, you have the tokenization of public company stocks, obviously inspired by tokenization of U.S. Treasuries and the dollar and stuff like that. And then Robinhood, obviously, his big vision, and this is very contentious, and this is something that we're actively thinking about also, and I can talk about this, is the tokenization of private stocks as well. right? So Robinhood came out with something called Robinhood Ventures, where they effectively will go and SPV. Well, they're probably just investing directly. They don't need an SPV. They have a lot of money into private companies, tokenize it, and then eventually sell it to their retail investors or whoever. They'll be able to, allow retail to have access to that, right? And like that's really exciting. So I want to talk about that point really really fast. For a lot of new protocols, for a lot of startups, even like myself, who is like somewhat in crypto, this is really important because previously for crypto startups, you generally need to launch a token, right? That's kind of like what investors kind of expect of you. But the problem is you end up having to play this Fugazi game, right? Where it's like you need to decentralize yourself and give away a majority of the tokens. So it's decentralized. But like, and then everyone complains why it crashes. But if you look at like the financial markets, which is very mature, it's like when Figma IPOs, they have 5% float, not 80% float.
Hmm.
You don't airdrop Figma stock to your users and let them dump it immediately, right? When your cost basis is zero, of course you're going to dump it. And so like the interesting thing that I think about in crypto now is because it's institutionalized, obviously there'll always be more builders, but like I don't think this like random grift thing is going to keep happening. Like obviously there'll always be meme coins, but like people come to crypto to get rich quick. They come to crypto for volatility, right? But the question I consistently ask, and even when we build stuff, is like, as a person, if you want volatility, why wouldn't you just go 100x Nvidia or 100x Google? Why would you go buy Fart coin? Well, not Fart coin. That's already a coin that's pretty successful. Why would you buy like Jizz coin, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you can already get the volatility that you're asking for. And so, how, so a lot of people are like, oh, prediction markets is going to be the next big thing. And sure, like obviously Robinhood has a big foot in that also as a Robinhood maxi. But I think like that's just, I'm like unsure of how crypto is going to progress from here, right? Like I retweeted this, someone wrote a really big essay about how like that narrative is just dead. Crypto is now institutional. There is no more crypto startups. It is just a way to move money around efficiently. That's it, right?
It'll be back. I think it'll be back. I think
It always
the
finds a
crypto.
way. It
I
always
think
finds a way.
greed always finds a way, and we've seen this
Yeah.
Hell
all with.
yeah.
I mean, every few years we get a new cycle, right? It's the same product, just different branding. We've got the ICO cycle, and then this meme
Mhm.
coin cycle. The NFT stuff was somewhere in there. I've been thinking a lot about this a lot. Like the prediction markets are different, right? It's not 100x. It's not a. It's a bit more. It's actually a bit more saner and safe for users. Yeah, there's
Mhm.
there's less rugging. There's no rugging
Yeah,
really. I
it's a
mean,
very specific
uh,
outcome, right?
right. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very specific outcome with a capped upside and a kind of capped downside. It's a different game than this whole print your tokens and dump them on your
It's fair. Yeah.
on everyone else. But you can't get 1000x. Well, until they come up with combos. So they're trying to fix this problem now.
The combos.
They're trying
Yeah,
to fix
yeah,
the problem. I
yeah.
think Kalshi just announced this, right? Or Polymark, I'm sure they're doing this as well.
Yeah. It's not
So
parlays, it's combos. It's not
combos,
player props. It's not player props, it's predictions.
right?
You
I
know? Yeah.
I actually was thinking about this. Either with combos or like prediction markets with their own tokens, like instead of the U.S. dollar being the basis, like creating a token and then running a prediction market on top of that token, so you can combine it. Something that gives you, yeah. You always think about schemes.
Mhm.
Something that gives you
I
that
don't scheme.
100,000x. Yeah.
I don't scheme. You guys scheme.
We would never scheme. Yeah.
Yeah, we never scheme. We never scheme. I'm not a schemer. What?
Yeah.
You
I
know?
think the appetite's there, just kind of waiting. It's probably like defeated a bit. I'm not. That it'll seem like it'll go away for a while, and in a couple of years we will come back with something. Maybe less than a couple of years if the cycle's faster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Um,
tough. And sorry, last thing, Nick. It's like the thing I'm obviously very excited Robinhood. I love Robinhood.
Hmm.
But it's like the really cool part about them launching their own chain, them tokenizing all these assets is like we all know from Pump Fund, we all know like they make a ton off of swap fees, and Robinhood is gonna have those fees. you know, so it's an incredibly massive business line that they're really unlocking here, right? And like, I don't know if I think this is definitely public knowledge. I read it somewhere. It's like Robinhood bought its own exchange, what CFTC regulated exchange that Sig now owns 5% of. That's going to help them market make it. Sorry, Nick, you can't be the market maker. And then maybe one day this pod gets big and you have a lot of LPs, and what were they going to say? Um, I forgot where I was going with this. Maybe I was just glazing Robinhood, but it's just exciting. And if they migrate off of call sheet, right? It's like
Hmm.
that's a huge detriment to volume. And it's just this like crazy thing. And I talked about this on the last pod also, is just like they're so good at building product, man. They're just so good, right? It's like, how are they still so fast? I went and said hi to their VP of product. That motherfucker looks so stressed and overworked. And then I asked my friend, he used to work at Robinhood. He's like, bro, that guy been looking like that for 7 years, bro.
Oh my
That's
god.
that's that's what you want.
Yeah,
Yeah,
his
wait,
eyes. I would.
but
Yeah.
before we
Oh,
talk about, I wanted to just wrap up the crypto point. I think, yeah,
mhm.
you make
Please,
a
yeah.
good point. I agree with you. I think it will be back. And Alex, you're saying, why would you kind of like punt off on like, a random meme coin when instead you could get that volatility with like, 100x Nvidia, for example? This sounds very kind of like brain dead, left curve, crypto, but the whole idea of kind of like buying into an asset that has like a new narrative or like has something that people really, really believe in, that I guess you might not be able to get with perps. And also, I guess the social proof that you develop from showing, hey, I bought into this idea and I'm making money on it now, and being able to share that, that that's like the flywheel that gets so much interest to kind of come in. So I think maybe there is like there's still probably a chance where when we're in that really highly liquid environment,
Sure, that's fair.
these random like religious like beliefs come out, and people are like, you know what, like I want to
All
do this
right,
because yeah.
all right, Indian Murad. All right, Indian Murad. I get you. Calm
No, no,
down. Calm down.
I'm never gonna the shill any coin,
But
any
but
meme coin, but
But but
um
but isn't that like okay? So you are right, right? Like it's a messy middle, right? Because when you financialize any asset, you inherently build a religion around it, right? Like you think about like Palantir, for example, right? Like I mean, I'm wearing an Era One hat, bro. I mean, I'm wearing like the peak capitalism like stuff, right? But it's like yeah, but it's literally like when you're right. Like I don't know. I think the only reason and if you go as left curve as possible, and maybe I am of the left curve, it's kind of just like the reason why I would do that is only because I don't wanna get taken advantage of by people smarter than me, right? Like, a lot of the reason why sometimes I went into crypto first was because I was like, "Man, competing against all these, like, MIT people is really hard. I need to go find areas of, where there's less competition, right? Avoid competition at all costs." And there's less of that in crypto, right? It was an easier way to win. No, seriously, like, I'm just gonna say
Mhm.
it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it
yeah,
is,
exactly.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'm so
Totally.
s
You
yeah,
not compete against Wall Street hedge funds or like these
yeah,
quant funds that are gonna kick your ass
yeah, exactly.
in
And
public
and
markets.
and so I see that as a core reason, but it's like but the corporate hedge funds are going into crypto, man. It's
They
like,
are. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, how do I avoid these guys? I can't. Like, they're
Yeah.
just there, right?
Yeah, it
So,
comes down to,
yeah,
like, market size as well, I guess, like, back then, the reason why they weren't involved is because yeah, the market just was not big enough yet, but it was at
and
a
not regulated, and it was
yeah,
like, yeah,
yeah, yeah, like, their investors would be, like, upset if they got lost money in this environment, and yeah, it was, like, at an attracted enough capacity to the point where, like, us getting involved, there's enough pie for us to, like, capture, um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, that is a good point, but I guess, like, the prediction market reskinning, yeah, it's interesting because I had this random idea of like, hey, you have Kalshi, you have Polymarket. We'll probably have Robinhood prediction markets too at this point. I mean, like we most likely are. And then now you're gonna have like in crypto land, like you have all these like different decentralized exchanges, right? You had like Uniswap, you had SushiSwap, you had like all these different swaps, and then on top of that, the next product line was like a decentralized exchange aggregator, right? So you just go to one app,
Mhm.
that app finds you the best price for and then routes it all intelligently throughout the different decentralized exchanges. I don't know. Maybe like what one interesting thing is that what if we have like a prediction market aggregator, right? Like because there's going to be so much like just price discrepancies in like different venues at this point. So I guess like yeah, as far as where's crypto's going, maybe we will see a lot of reskinning around prediction markets. Um, and also one last thing I'll say
wait,
is
wait, and then can you dive into that? Why would an aggregator exist? Like,
yeah,
why wouldn't they all kind of trend towards the best execution price?
yeah, I mean, so I guess like an aggregator would kind of just like okay, so you have like three different venues, for example, right? You'd have to like probably market make, like suppose you have arbitrageurs, kind of like uh, equalizing prices between two venues or all three venues, right? Getting access to that kind of like equalizer is like an it's an infrastructure that you basically have IP that you use to build, right? And then like that naturally ends up kind of becoming something that will be accessible to everybody. And that's what we saw with the AMMs. So this is an idea I just thought of while on this pod. It's not something I thoroughly thought about, it does kind of make sense to me that we will see more infrastructure that might be permissionlessly developed on top of these prediction markets. Yeah, I think it's possible that that might be the next reskin. And
Yeah,
yeah, the
'cause
last
what
thing I'll say about well, the last thing I'll say about that, and then you and go ahead. I
yeah.
was gonna say that like owning or being able to like create prediction markets like by yourself, like I believe that process is not entirely permissionless yet, or I shouldn't say yet. I don't know if it ever will be, but there is like a
It
bit of
probably
a
will be.
probably, yeah.
More
How else
fraud,
are we
more
gonna have fun?
fraud.
Yeah, how else are we gonna
Yeah.
have fun? Yeah. So, when it does become permissionless, then things will get very interesting because then you'll have random groups and cabals kinda controlling, different prediction markets, and that's where things can get fun, I would say. That's when, like, you have the religious, like the religious, like, narratives kinda develop, the hardcore believers on, like,
Mm.
whatever. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's
Ewan, go
what I
ahead.
think. There's one slight quirk when it comes to aggregating prediction markets is that the markets are not homogeneous. Like each rule set, each particular market is it has its own rules, so they're not exactly equivalent. Small quirk probably could figure out a way around that, but with actually creating your own, I've been looking into this kind of this space. I think creating your own markets, not many people realize it, but like the creating markets on Polymarket and Kalshi is pretty tight. People just assume that everyone just assumes that you could just go in there and like create your own. No, it's like it's actually done centrally, right? So I think the next wave
Right.
would be creating, whether it's creators, actual creators. I think that's a kind of interesting space. We see like Mr. Beast being a pretty popular on the mentioned markets already. I feel like many creators will start creating their own kind of prediction markets on
Uh,
themselves. For example, as a way to play with their audience a bit more.
Yo, that's
that
it,
makes
bro.
sense.
That's the next thing. Decentralized prediction markets, because that's
Yeah,
where you can have a lot of fun. Yeah.
no, you're right. It's like I'm conflicted in it, not from like a ethics standpoint per se, because I know with crypto these things just get muddy. So you and I don't know if you know, I explored trying to do live stream predictions. I don't want to say
Mhm,
betting, and the things that we encountered and we were really going through like the thought experiment was like one, you do need some form of like a market maker to actually want to market make such a small market at that given point in time. So it's not really relevant for people because on Twitch you have like channel points. Oh, do you think I'm gonna be this level? But it's like you need to actually have some sort of liquid market to make that happen. So that's one. And the second thing is basically like, and I guess this one's like a moot point because like it can happen anytime. It's like, oh, like when it comes to such a small market, how do you prevent like fixing, right? Where and then what is the oracle that basically like helps actually determine? I think like in crypto we use like UMA protocol or whatever. Is that
mhm,
what it is? Like for
mhm.
poly market, it's like how do you actually like settle some of these like predictions? I think and I'm not saying it's not going to happen because as you said like meme coins ultimately ended up just being all cabal territory, right? And just like rugging unsuspecting retail and unsuspecting retail without protections will always kind of go get rugged basically, unfortunately. So I don't know, like how do you give them how do you sell them this dream of like because like it depends, right? If it's like a creator market, like Mr. Beast can certainly pull it off, but how do you sell this dream of like make a bunch of money of a small amount of capital on something you're interested in if the market isn't that big? You know what I mean? Nick's like volume, bro. I don't care about one single big market. It's all about volume. Yeah.
Well, dude, Alex, I mean, that is the question, right? It's like, hey, how can you like have a very, very asymmetric success story using prediction markets, right?
Right, right.
I don't
You
have the
fix it,
answer.
which I'm not on predictions at all, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
I
you.
know. But I think that's something that'll be figured out. It'll be something that we'll probably see as this gets more adopted. So, yeah,
Where do you guys think prediction markets are going as a whole? Isn't it all? It's all sports now, right? Even with
it's
all the
mostly
talk
Majority
about
sports for
sports.
politics, it's
sure.
still mostly sports. And there's nothing
Yeah,
wrong with that, I think. But like, I think that's a really cool like thing that's happening. Back to my lawyer roots, like a pretty fun regulatory battle like emerging, and a great end run by Kalshi and the rest of the guys to go through the
I
CFTC.
I I completely agree. I mean, like one of the earliest startups I tried to do was esports betting. And this was back in 2000, trying to get a license. You had to basically partner with a land-based casino because it was like a lot of protections. Um, and it was frankly just really expensive and impossible. There was a startup that PG invested in coming out of YC called Novig that I considered investing in for quite some time, doing prediction
Oh yeah.
markets just for sports. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think they spent a majority of their funding trying to get a license, and they did get a license in Colorado. They spent like 2 years getting it, got licensed, And then when the prediction market thing came out, they're like, meh, screw the
Yeah,
license, and they just went
yeah.
national, right? Um, it's sports for now. That's always going to be the most popular category. The narrative that people like to say, and Vlad says this as well, is like people, and Coinbase is now doing it as well, is that they do use it for news. I do use it for like checking interest rates, like chance the Fed will cut and how many bips. Like I do that, and I think like everyone uses that now. Like I'm sure the funds use it for the algorithmic trading. It just like, Vlad said this thing where he was like, oh, like for example, if you um if you have a house, if you hedge, right, use it as insurance, right? It's like, oh, if your house is in the Palisades and California won't allow you to sell home insurance there or something, right? Or like the insurers don't want to insure there, you can kind of take a bet against it. But it's like,
No, dude, no
bro,
one's
like,
who's doing that? They
yeah,
wanna bet on
bro,
the
like,
Lakers. They don't bet
yeah,
on
yeah,
LeBron,
it's a
that's
good, it's a good. Yeah, I learned a lot from I learned a lot from his ability to tell stories. I think it's really important to own that narrative. He's like, yeah, dude, do you know how big the insurance industry? Trillions,
Mhm.
prediction markets right here. And I was
Yeah.
like, all right. I mean, who knows? But can you actually wait? That's a real question I want to ask you guys. Can you create a synthetic insurance product with prediction markets?
Theory, right? I
I
I
mean, I
I
guess
guess?
so, 'cause
Is
the yeah, I guess, like, the Oracle resolver will
Guys,
be what you're insuring.
we gotta we gotta start this
Yeah,
company.
this is
We
it.
gotta we gotta invest in this company. It sounds incredible.
it
Yeah.
sounds like someone would need to do the day-to-day trading of that market. Like, I don't think the end user, the consumer, will be the one, like, managing
Yeah,
the
yeah.
market themselves.
They want to just buy the
Some
product.
service, yeah. They just wanna,
Yeah,
like,
and then
"Give me
someone on
insurance,"
the
not the
back end.
insurance, yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
Yeah,
trade.
yeah, yeah.
I guess, like, the bigger money, they trade insurance with each other often, OTC, and so I guess, like, if prediction markets itself would ever get to a point where there is enough volume, not necessarily for the big guys, but maybe for, like, you know, uh, middle, like us individuals to, like,
Right.
have enough capacity to, like, buy insurance, I guess it could work, like.
Dude, what if I mean, I know this won't happen. I mean, this will happen, but it also will be illegal to do it. It's just like you get those people, you know how like they're like, "Oh, like green dildo on the NBA court," right? That was like a prediction. What if someone's
Yeah.
like, "I'm gonna go burn this house down, fuck it." You
Good.
know?
I was thinking that, like, you have a house on, like, an address, and you're like, "Yo, this house burns down in fire," and it's like a prediction. No, no, but that's like,
That's
dude,
arson,
yeah,
it's illegal.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, this probably technically can work, but will it happen and, like, develop? I don't know. Like, yeah.
Very dystopian, but dystopian is usually the future, I guess.
Yeah, one thing I'll say real quick is, like, yeah, so as of, like, the beginning of December, Wall Street volume, so 14.5 billion was sports, 1.2 billion was elections, or rather 2.2 billion was elections, and 800 million was crypto. So, yeah, I think, like, I was looking through, so there's this website, it's polymarketanalytics.com. It kinda just, like, indexes, like, various different accounts. You could see, like, accounts with top P&L, and you could see, like, their activity, what bets they've taken, how much volume. And so if you see, like, the top P&L accounts, I think, like, one of the top is, like, 20 million, and then, like, the rank number 10 is, like, middle 7 figures, so, like, that's what the distribution is like. A lot of
Mm,
these accounts have few trades, and they just, like, bet huge on, like, Trump winning the election, because that was, like,
mm.
one of the fewer markets that actually had a lot of volume where you can make that type of big of a trade. And then on that list, you'll come across accounts that have, like, a lot of positions taken, and those guys are doing something interesting with sports betting. I couldn't tell you what exactly there is. They're probably doing some type of intelligent market making, uh, like, algorithm. Yeah, it's so that's like the state of the market, or state of prediction markets as I see it now.
I see.
Biggest win, 705,000 on the Rams versus Seahawks. That's a
Well, well,
who would
not
ape?
What have
bad.
we
No,
done?
no.
All we did was reskin sportsbook into prediction markets.
I think the really interesting thing was the mix of people that went to the event. So I went to 4 events this year by Robinhood, and uh, usually the composition is people that look like us, just like degenerate traders. Maybe not you, Ewan. I don't know if you degenerately trade, but it was like young people just degenerately trading. And so when we brought them all to Vegas, it was like I was watching everyone just like gambling on craps and all sorts of stuff, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. When I went to the this event, it was in like north of SF. The interesting composition was more older folk. And when I was talking to them, so like Vlad has this narrative of why Robinhood is going to be huge, bigger than Schwab and a lot of the banks. Is this a wealth transfer from the boomers to the millennials? And he thinks that's going to be the greatest kind of money transfer kind of flowing in, and he is correct. locked up in real estate and all this stuff. That's kind of why they're like dabbling in real estate and stuff like that. I was talking to a lot of them, and the mix was actually quite a few boomers. Like I asked them, I was like, "Hey, they're like, oh, I don't actually use the Robinhood app. It's like something that you young people use, and it's kind of weird. Like I don't trust it. But that 2% match, I was like, why not? I mean, this company's big enough. It seems too big to fail. So let me just put my money there. And these people are moving over 7, 8 figure AUM, and they're like, whatever. I'll just move my money over and keep it there and get the yield. It's beating out all the incumbents. I don't trade at
Mhm.
all. I do zero trades. So I thought that was quite interesting. So, I don't know if this is alpha, but it provides a little bit of like signal where it's like, dude, it's working. Right? These matches are working. People think they're throwing money away, but they're moving a lot of AUM over and they're growing significantly faster than everyone else. Right? Like you have people like Schwab coming out and saying, yeah, we're gonna add crypto soon. And it's taking them like, I don't know how long.
Yeah,
Right?
they're not
And
innovating. There's no way that they're moving.
yeah, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, well, the prediction markets, what's that?" Right? And meanwhile, Robinhood's already on a $100 million run rate off of prediction markets, maybe even higher, and now buying their own exchange. So,
Wait, there's a
you know,
2%
I'll,
bonus? Wait, I should move my you
yeah,
just
yeah,
converted
exactly, exactly. No,
Come
it
they
through,
comes
just
and
bro.
give you
goes.
2%? They just give you 2%?
Yeah, they just give you. Well, you have to keep your assets there for at least
Uh-huh,
2 years, I believe.
uh-huh.
And they'll do a lot of random like, they're just fast, man. "Oh, move your crypto over, you get 2% as long as you hold it there for 2 years." When Tesla shareholders couldn't vote when they're on the other brokerages, Robinhood gave them a 1% match or something, and they said they moved, like, $100 billion of Tesla stock over, something like that. Oh, no, maybe not 100 billion, like 16 billion. I don't wanna say anything false. Not financial information, by the way, guys. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just incredible. Would not wanna compete against them, basically, and if I did, I would look like that Indian VP who does not like his life, but he's doing quite well, I assume. So, yeah.
Sick. Yeah.
Alright, cool, guys. Let's wrap it up here. It's been an hour and 15 minutes. Ewan, thank you so much for coming on the pod. Would hope to have you again. This was really, really great, and, yeah, I'll see you guys all next week.
Sick.
Ciao.
This is great.
Take care.
Alright, see you guys.
See
Alright,
ya.
bye, guys.